Welcome to the Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. This podcast is dedicated to providing the key ingredients to transform your employees into a dream team, creating consistent results in every aspect of your business, including your people, your process, and your profits. Your team empowerment, leadership, business development, communication, hiring, and firing. As some of the country's leading staffing and management consultants, we help business owners, i.e. entrepreneurs, and the team that support them, what we call intrapreneurs, to powerfully connect and work together to grow the business.
Today, we are talking about the front of the house, your director of first impression. We are talking about client services. And I'm really, this is a conversation I am very passionate about. You all hear me get on my soapbox about follow-up. You hear me talk about your client service coordinator. Stop treating the person that is answering your phone like, quote unquote, just a receptionist. They are your sales force. They are your director of first impression. They are your client retention team. They are your client and referral nurture team. So I'm really excited about today's guest. We have a practicing attorney. So you all better listen up because we have John Strohmeyer here, and he has such an amazing background and different perspective to bring to this conversation. And John, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Oh, Molly, it's great to be here. And, I share your passion on client service as well.
Yeah. So tell our listeners, give them a little bit of background, pre becoming a lawyer, and then bring us up to present tense as well.
Sure. So the present tense, to see where we are, I own Strohmeyer Law, where I guide my clients through the maze of estate planning, probate, and tax law. But my hidden talent is that between college and law school, I spent 4 years working for the Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, and 3 years of that was spent as the night manager of the Austin property. So I'd show up at 11 o'clock at night, Tuesday through Saturday night, and I'd stay until 8 or 9 the next morning. And whatever happened in that hotel landed on my desk one way or another.
Cool. Oh, the graveyard shift, I think they call that.
Yes, graveyard, third shift, whatever it is, overnights is what we typically called it. And, when you get at the hotel, when it's a Four Seasons, it doesn't magically become a Two Seasons hotel once the clock strikes midnight or 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. We still had to deliver with a skeleton crew of 13 people in the same way that we deliver if it were 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and we had 150 employees in the hotel. And so, I did that for a few years, then ran off to law school, thought, oh, this probably never come back. And what I found is a lot of the lessons overlap, but there are a lot of things that just the lessons can get mistranslated when you think about it, because look, lawyers, we go to nice upscale places like Four Seasons and Disney and Ritz, and we think that what they're doing automatically translates into exactly what we should be doing in our law firm. And there are things we can take, but a lot of things we don't want to just automatically say, oh, well, the Four Seasons does that or Disney does that, so we need to do that too.
So, yeah, I love that you brought in Disney too, because back in, I don't know when it was, maybe the early 2000s or what have you, a lot of these business books talked about the Disney experience. I saw so many law firms really killing their team, blowing up their processes, what have you, to try to implement they would even coin it, the Disney experience. And I'm excited for your perspective, kind of how to implement what can work in a very impactful way to absolutely differentiate yourself in your marketplace from your experience and your perspective, and how it translates into a law firm. And it's not black or white, all or nothing thinking.
Right. And, I'll start with the initial mindset shift that I want people thinking about is when you go to a Disney or a Four Seasons, you're going there for any other kind of comparable place. We think, oh, lawyers and Disney and Four Seasons, they're all service economy. the restaurant. It's also service economy. We're all the same. And really it isn't. You're going to Disney and Four Seasons for some combination of entertainment, pampering, and fun. Or as I'd put it, if you had a unlimited budget and a free Saturday, you'd probably pick going to Disney and Four Seasons. Mm-hmm. What you're probably not going to pick is, even with an unlimited budget, is let me go hang out with my lawyer or my doctor. Maybe certain people would want to go hang out with the barber or the hairdresser. But really, when it comes down to those professional services, doctors, lawyers, we're going in, we want to get some needle moved on something. We get the divorce completed, get me out of jail, get the child adopted, plan my estate, fix what's wrong with my foot. And those are, that kind of group of move the needle tasks is just very different than entertainment, pampering, and fun. And what it doesn't mean is don't make sure you have a pleasant experience, but it does mean you've got to be focused first on how do we move that needle for the client, because that's what they want from us more than the great drink menu or the ball pit or the free massages.
So talk to us a little bit about how this translates into a law firm. I'm so intrigued.
So what it means is we've got to be thinking first and foremost, the clients have hired us to move that needle for them. When we are designing our experience, when we're thinking about the client journey and all the other bits that go into it, from intake to and onboarding to how we disengage at the end of the representation, how is what we're doing making sure that it's as easy as possible for clients to achieve those objectives? And when we're investing, whether it's a new piece of technology, upgrading the conference room because people are going to be coming in, we want to think about it through that lens of how do we make it easier for clients to achieve their objective? To throw it in a different light, I want to give an example of a dentist who, it's a couple miles from my house. I pass by their offices every week or so, and they have a billboard out front. Get your braces for, I think it's $4,200, and you get a free set of AirPods when you pay. And, thinking about it, well, the clients are going there, their patients are going in, the needle they want moved is straighten my teeth. What doesn't necessarily line up is getting a set of AirPods. It's sure the clients may want a set of AirPods, but you don't necessarily need to go to your dentist or the orthodontist to get those AirPods. The patients could have gone and just bought them themselves. What's the benefit to the patient of that orthodontic practice of outsourcing the orthodontist as the procurement agent? Why not just go directly to Apple? Likewise, why is the orthodontist charging, call it $300 more for braces when they could just cut the price? And really, it doesn't even mean that they need to cut the price. It just, they're not connected in a way that doesn't really drive what the client or the patient is looking for.
So do you think that strategy, are you saying that they're missing the mark there?
Right. I think that they've focused on, we need to give some over the top gift to our patients. And it really doesn't reinforce, why would the orthodontist be giving out AirPods? I'm not saying, I'm not even questioning their pricing. They should, right. Maybe they need to be even doubling pricing. So it's not a question of the specific price. It's how do the AirPods help clients straighten their teeth?
Yeah.
And it's, look, they may have a great reason for why. Look, when you come in, you're going to float away on a meditation. We'll have these AirPods for you. That, I'm not even saying that couldn't work, but they haven't sold me. And, really, they haven't made that connection in a way that makes sense. And so rather than, spending the time and effort on, well, we need to make sure we have these AirPods in stock and we need to make sure we do all this and kind of the minor tasks, the sand in the gears of that practice, that are spent trying to have AirPods in stock and deal with whatever that looks like, instead of how can we make it more effective for our patients to know this is what they're doing so that they really can stand out in the market. The differentiation for that orthodontist as the AirPod given us away orthodontist in town, is that really the differentiator they want to be, instead of we're the orthodontist for most complex cases, for the orthodontist who will fill in the problem that, because I'm not an orthodontist, I can't put an effective set of words on. It doesn't help them stand out in an effective way that better delivers to their patients.
Right. And bringing it back to client service. So the AirPods, let's just use it. I'm like, I could probably argue that my kid reads and can see the sign and be like, let's go to that orthodontist. You've been bugging them to get their braces, what have you. But to bring it back to, you run out of the AirPods, the promotion ends, what have you, going back to really standing out and differentiating yourself in the marketplace. You see the billboard, you see the promotion, what have you, you call the practice, and your client service coordinator puts you on hold for 40 minutes. They don't make you feel warm and welcome. Every kid, high school kid driving by sees the sign. Mom's been bugging them to get braces. Now they're like, oh, I'll go get braces now. And the phone starts ringing off the hook and they can't handle it and they can't keep up with it. And, or you walk in there and you're paying somebody $15 an hour, what have you, and you do not get the warm and fuzzies, you or your kid, who is probably pretty anxiety ridden. And you as a parent, you're like, why am I paying more than the guy down the street?
Right.
When you don't get the white glove Ritz-Carlton service walking in.
Right. And, let's think about this, because you hit on a bunch of things and I want to kind of consolidate it into one phrase, at least for right now. The warm and fuzzies, the white glove treatment, Ritz-Carlton. Let's just think about this as, at the end of the day, you want your clients leaving a 5-star review for you. And think about what that review, think about what the review that should look like if you want other people to look at your firm and say, oh my God, that's the one I want. Now, if they, imagine this is the white glove 5-star treatment that you've given out. The client who's going to leave that is going to leave some wonderful phrases, made us feel welcome. My kids were assured, anxiety released, got the job done. Whatever, dozens of phrases that can apply to whatever your practice is. That's what you'd want to see in that 5-star review, because then the next client who's checking out your reviews, they're going to say, oh my gosh, got the job done, took care of us, made us feel welcome, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. But then think about the 5-star review that comes solely from, we got a set of AirPods. Like, oh my gosh, this was the greatest orthodontist. We got a set of AirPods at the end of it. And that's, really, they're drawn on that. Would you as a potential patient for that orthodontist say, oh, they got a 5-star review for AirPods? Yeah, of course, that's the one I'm going to pick. Or, this orthodontist or this law firm, the 5-star review says that they have the best drink menu. That, it is like, it just, I get the drive of like, oh, well, we had a great experience at Disney because they had the over the top surprises and these gifts and the drink menu and the food was wonderful. It ultimately is a distraction from what we're trying to do. It's not that it's not if you had an unlimited budget, you couldn't or shouldn't do it. But the reality is we're running small law firms. We've got, margins that we're trying to hit, and we just can't be drugged in 85 different ways when we're competing with other businesses, other firms that are doing similar things. And really, we want to be judged on that quality of work because that's what our clients are looking at. I go off into on this little tangent of what I want to think about is, look, I know that there are studies out there that say, well, look, even when doctors haven't gotten the best result for the clients, ultimately it's how they made you feel. I don't disagree with that. But making people feel good is something you don't have to, it doesn't require that you swipe your Amex for AirPods or a drink menu or, this over the top expensive experience. It's all about your people and how they're taking care of your clients.
So what are some tips and tricks that you've taken from your time in very high caliber 5-star hotel chains and implemented into your law firm that really can help law firms stand out right from the client service perspective, not from the legal work you do? I always tell my attorneys, listen, clients assume everybody knows that it's no small feat to get into law school. It's no small feat to pass the bar. It is absolutely no small feat. And especially if you have LLMs or any other designations, the clients assume you know how to do that, you know how to do the legal work. That's not why they hire you, because your legal strategy, especially if they can't even get into the conference room because they're treated so poorly from that first initial phone call. What are some tips you can give to really help our attorneys understand the crucialness of client services? Because I always tell attorneys, listen, if your client service at the front of the house does not do a white glove stellar job, actually your job's irrelevant because you have absolutely no one to meet with.
Right. And there are so many things we can think about. So we'll talk about a few of them. But ultimately, none of this is going to be necessarily not the things I've got written down of what we want to talk about. We're not going to be talking about this is how you swipe your Amex to spend a lot on client experience. It's going to be just how you're going to set things up so that you make it easy. Think of it as these are the adjectives on how you're delivering. And so, easy, friendly, things like that, and so tip number one, you want to make sure that your clients know that when they've appeared in front of you, still in the middle of COVID, so whether it's on a Zoom phone or a Zoom meeting, phone call, that you're ready for them. And I'm going to take it back to a restaurant experience I had to kind of solidify this. A few years ago, I was having a networking lunch with one of my referral sources, and the two of us we'd made a reservation for a restaurant. We showed up. They said, "Yes, we've got your table. Come right back." So step one, saying, "Yes, of course we have your reservation." That was something we did all the time at the Four Seasons. Somebody walks to the front desk. "I'm, Mr. Smith, got a reservation." Literally the verbiage we were told to use was, "Yes, I have your reservation." Why? You want to put them at ease that they are, we were ready, welcome, and expecting you. This is not a surprise. We knew you were coming. But what the restaurant did, they totally undermined all of that when they sat us, because they took us to a table. There were two people. They knew it was a reservation for two people. There was even a card on the table that said reserved, but the table was set for four people. And so did they really expect us, or were they able to just say, "Oh, yes, we have your reservation, so-and-so, come on back"? It was those little touches that you could look and say, well, anybody could have shown up. You didn't have this table set for us. And it's not even that they had to have a particular table, but it would have, it undermines you when you say, "We're ready for you, and here's this table set for four," even though we only knew two people were coming. How does that translate for lawyers? When you're coming in for meetings, show that you recognize the people who are going to be in front of you. When I've got people coming in for meetings in my office, we've got places set at the conference table. And it's not just a blank conference table with some notepads thrown at the end of the table and a holder for pens. We have pads and a pen ready to go for everybody who's expected to be there. And not just the clients, but me. And if I've got an associate who's going to be there, making sure that we've got the table set for four people. If it's me, an associate, and my two clients. If it's just three of us, three places are set. Now, there may be more stuff on my side just because I've got documents to go through with them. but just showing, look, we knew you were coming. We knew exactly how many people were coming. We had copies ready. We had pens ready because this is important. We want you to be able to take notes and not even have to think about where's the pen. It's the pen's right in front of your place at the table. We've set the table for you to be here, and we've recognized you're going to be in front of us. This is how we've put this much thought into the pen being in front of you as we have everywhere else.
I love that example that you say. As you were speaking, I was thinking even when clients come in for their meetings, even now, all right, so we have this virtual world. Some people are doing Zoom room meetings. And I'm even thinking as you're speaking of having, listen, you can do waiting room, customized waiting rooms in your Zoom rooms. You can make signs that I've walked into some law firms as I visit them across the country prior to the pandemic, and there would have signs that would even say like, welcome, Molly. And right there outside in the reception area, as soon as I walked in, had, a bottle of water for me, what have you. But even in your Zoom rooms, you can customize that and put a welcome sign when they enter it and they're waiting in the waiting room as well.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, again, these are not over the top things. It's just small little touches here and there to show you haven't done, or you've done just a little bit more, you've thought about it. And something like in Calendly, if you use it, you can have, once somebody's booked, you can redirect them to a specific page. It doesn't just have to be the generic Calendly thank you page. You can send them perhaps to a specific, a YouTube thank you for scheduling video. You may redirect them somewhere inside to a more specific tracked landing page. Thinking about how do you make it easy and just use that technology that you're already using to make it easy for your clients to get the right things done.
What do you think about this too? As you were saying that, I love that, even upgrading your whole intake process of sending out a video as soon as they book a call. So they book a call with client services, and maybe client services says that they're going to send a video welcoming them. It doesn't even have to be done by the attorney. It can be done by client service coordinator, really to get it in their bones and take ownership of the client experience and send them a welcome email. Here's what you can expect. Here's our process. Here's what's going to happen. Here's step one. The next meeting that you're going to meet, whether it be virtual, it's going to be in person, and really walk them through that experience and up-leveling some of those touch system versus traditional stuff. Again, talking about how you really can stand out in your marketplace upon your competition, what have you. And that's just so many great ways to up-level without handing out $289 AirPods.
Exactly. And that video, I'm sitting here thinking, well, there are a couple ways you could do it. It could be as simple as a video that is, the generic, everybody gets the same, quick, hey, thanks for scheduling. It's probably going to be obvious, or I'm breaking it, the same thank you video. We're looking forward to talking to you. It's not customized, but it's very easy to deliver on it. What I also don't want people doing is thinking, oh my God, I've got to jump to customized video landing pages where we talk about, hey, Bill and Sue Smith, thanks so much for scheduling. We're looking forward to talking to you about you and your 3 children and 2 Pomeranians and your lake house. Don't don't think you've got to go to, oh golly, I'm running out of words on it. You don't have to go to the extreme on this. Even if it's just a simple, 30-second video saying, hey, looking forward to talking to you. Our process looks like this, and outlining it in something that you are going to stand out because the bar is, unfortunately, on the ground for client service when it comes to lawyers.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So what are some tips, John, that you can give us that you really feel like your clients in your law firm that you've taken from, your time at these top-notch hotels that you've heard from your clients that really, really stand out? What else would you offer to our listeners today?
So one of the things, and we actually just started hitting on it, but showing clients the roadmap. What does it look like when you work with us? for me as an estate planner, it seems fairly simple. You come in, you talk to us, we draft documents, and you sign them. But explaining that, and again, explaining it as part of that first video to clients of, hey, you've signed up to do estate planning. This is what our process looks like. And making sure they understand what the roadmap looks like for them so that they at least know where they are in the process. The clients, we kind of spell it out in a few different ways for them so that they know this is what's coming up next. This is what we're missing. This is what we need to do. If you flip it over to a litigator context, spelling it out, every client's going to have their own special circumstances. Things are going to be a little bit different. But ultimately, they're all going to look, the process will be the same for most cases. You'll have discovery and motions, trial, but just making sure the clients who are almost certainly not lawyers and, they've got the jargon flying by them so fast, if they've got the roadmap, okay, we're in stage 1 of 6 for this trial and resolution, or the divorce is going to take, 8 stages, whatever it is, making sure that they know where they are so that they're not just getting lost in a process and of, we've got to file this motion, just helping spell it out, because ultimately you've got to guide your clients through a process. You are not the hero of their story. They're the hero. And so you're really just getting them to the top of whatever mountain, so that you can get their results for them. How can you make sure they know this is what's happening? This is what I need to expect. This is what's coming up next. It just defuse kind of the tension so that they can know what to expect. It'll make it so much easier for them.
I love that you said that. As you were speaking, I think so often when you get retained or hired by a client, and many of our listeners are estate planning elder law firms, so you're speaking right into their listening, they will get hired, what have you, and then be like, okay, great. We're solid. We're good. We don't have to. And think about how many times, as you were saying that, of having the roadmap, this is the beginning, here's the middle, here's the end, here's the why of what we're doing, and really painting that picture. Imagine if you don't have that and you don't have people, client service coordinators and attorneys that lay that out for them, number one, but number two, consistently touch them and remind them throughout the process. The typical estate planning process is about 5-6 weeks long. So a client comes in, they retain you for your vision meeting, initial meeting, whatever you call it. Then, 2 weeks later, they come in for their design meeting, or maybe you do it in the meeting, then you come in for a sign meeting. It's not a one-time, no, I don't know any legal process that's a one and done. And then they start getting other interactions with other law firms. And next thing you know, they're canceling their next meeting with you or consistently rescheduling it. We all know those clients that consistently cancel and or reschedule over and over again. And I'm just thinking, if you have a law firm that does paint the roadmap, that does nurture the client, that over communicates with them and constantly painting the experience of what makes you different, the coast is not clear just once you get retained by them. You still have to continually pour into them, don't you think?
Right. And it's not a one and done. And look, I'll tell you that part of my process is I get my fees up front for clients, just as a way of saying, look, I do flat fees. I know what I'm going to charge you. It makes it easier for me on the billing on the front end. But ultimately, that money goes into IOLTA. I haven't earned it until they've signed documents. Yeah. And it's important to recognize my job is to, again, move the needle for the client. Like their job is, nominally to sign documents, but really they want the plan in place to achieve that plan. They don't care if they get a will or a trust or a singing bush that just tells people what to do when they're gone. They want to make sure that they, actually achieve that objective of getting the plan in place so that their wishes are carried out.
Absolutely. Okay. Another tip. What else would you leave for our listeners?
I mean, to kind of pull it way back, I've mentioned that service is how you're delivering your legal product. Think of it as the adjectives and adverbs. Well, the way that's coming through, the way, the delivery vehicle for it are your people. And Molly, kind of right in the middle of what you're doing, you've got to make sure you're hiring the right people, because if they're not going to be pleasant, if they're not going to be friendly and empathetic and, the other adjectives that you need your people to be for your particular practice, you're going to have a hard time convincing the grump to be friendly to everybody if you're not making sure that you're hiring for those correct values on the way in.
I'll have people tell me when they're hiring client service coordinators, what have you, they get seduced by the resume. They want to see writing samples. They want to see how they handle, if they're able to format a letter properly, things of that nature. And that the piece that you're speaking of is with the massive myth in regards to close your eyes. This is what I tell people: close your eyes and pretend like you're the client listening to this person. Because sometimes they'll say, well, this person has typos in the resume, or they're not the best fit. I'm like, have you listened to their phone present? They're absolutely phenomenal. We can put in best practice approaches in regards to making certain that we get spot check on the grammar, Grammarly, whatever we need to put in place to make certain that nothing goes out that is not of exceptional quality. But close your eyes and listen to your client service coordinator. And you all know when you call other places, the first within 2 seconds, if you're in good hands or not.
Oh, that's so right. We as lawyers didn't come out of law school knowing how to do all the things that we know how to do now. Like, the skills were learned on the job. And, ask any lawyer. Oh, law schools don't teach kids anything these days. As far as I can tell, every lawyer who's ever hired another lawyer has said that. And it doesn't matter how long you've been in practice. They, the folks who are the oldest partners right now probably had it said about them when they started, decades ago. But what you're talking about, where you're hiring for the quality of the cover letter, or whether or not they can use this piece of technical kit, those are all trainable skills. We can change whether or not somebody knows to use the Oxford comma or not in our office, or how to format something. I've got somebody on my team who was not tech savvy, remains not terribly tech savvy, but at this point, we've gotten him up to speed so that he's using, two-factor authentication to get in all of his accounts that he needs to. And it's just a matter of, are you willing to commit to the right person, knowing that you can get just about anybody up to speed on a particular piece of technology. And whether it's technology or knowing the law or a particular practice area, you can train around that. You can't necessarily train around attitude.
Or compassion, empathy, warmth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well said. What, I know you have a podcast.
Yes.
I know. Tell our listeners a little bit so they can continue to follow you, and how they can hear more about what you're doing. And tell us a little bit about your podcast. So
sure.
Because I have many attorneys that say, I would love to start a podcast. And you're a practicing attorney. Tell us a little bit about what made you start that.
So, I talked a little bit about my career in the Four Seasons. I have the 5-Star Counsel podcast, and I started it really to share what I'd figured out about client service for other lawyers. And every episode is driving at trying to answer the question, what would a law firm built by the founders of Disney, Four Seasons, Amazon, and Zappos look like? And I'll admit, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but every week we're releasing episodes on how do we figure out what that law firm that's built on a client service, as well as, modern efficiency and technically competent practice, what does that look like? Because it's not all in the past. Disney continues to evolve. And look, I'm a huge Disney fan. I'm really excited. In a few weeks, I'm interviewing on the podcast, a former executive vice president of operations for Disney World.
Oh, wow.
And it's the sort of things that what can we gain from there, but also knowing, look, Disney's going to do things where I'll say that doesn't make sense in a professional services context. It doesn't mean we can't pick up something, but that may not, we're not necessarily going to be putting in the shock and awe service moments that a Disney would.
So starting this podcast, how has it impacted you, your practice, you as a leader? What have been the benefits of starting this podcast?
I will say, and I remember hearing this in multiple contexts before I started the podcast. Oh, you've got to know what your voice is and how you find that voice. You've got to find your voice and just hammer on that and don't try and be somebody else. When I started this, I was like, what does that even mean? But what it has turned into and what has helped me kind of hone the message is I'm not looking for just any sort of, what does service mean? We've got to explore this. It's driving at that question of, what would that law firm built by the founders of Disney and Four Seasons, Amazon and Zappos look like? Like that's the voice is we're trying to answer that question, and it just helps bring the clarity. And now I'm like, oh, how can we help make it operational for law firms so that they can bring this higher level of client service? And just the focus you get, it's so much easier to say, oh, this person makes sense as a guest, or this person just clearly doesn't make sense. It's a great filter. And when you've got, kind of like figuring out that version of this is what voice means, it's helped in, like focusing me on that podcast, but also in the practice. It's like, oh, we're not just here for documents. Clients don't care about the documents. Clients care about how have we helped them plan for the future. And so bringing, everything in the firm needs to be revolving around how do we make it easy for clients to achieve their goals with their plan. It doesn't necessarily, I'm not going to come out and say, all right, well, they want to make sure that they're leaving a well-restored lake house to their kids. I'm not going to go out there and hire contractors to fix the house. That's beyond what we need to do. But even starting to recognize, all right, well, this is where we really do our best work for clients, and this is how we can help them achieve their planning goals. It's helped bring that clarity across not just the podcast, but also the practice.
I can imagine just the way you facilitate and lead and show up in the conference room is good. I mean, recording a podcast, I can tell you for myself, even just as, my coaching and consulting clients, I will always say, to my attorneys that want to start a podcast, this will help you so much in regards to what you bring to the conference room for your clients, for your workshops you do, for your speaking engagements, your one-on-one meetings with referral sources, what have you, just help you to up level. And I'm sure you learn a lot from your guests and different podcasts you're on that you can bring to your conference room and really hone in and communicate and hammer home what you all, what makes you different in the marketplace, correct?
Oh, sure. And it comes down to, well, look, I've got, when I go into interview clients, interview guests on the podcast, I've got my set, one sheet that I walk in where I've thought about things. The interview we're doing in a couple weeks, we print out the interview notes. I've got some standard questions that I have as backup if, I get lost or we're looking for something. But even just knowing that, it's like, all right, even if they come in and they say nothing, the guest says nothing, I know I've got 10 questions ready to go. I'm not scrambling for those. The repetition and, the focus that brings from knowing, look, as an estate planner, I don't do litigation. I just do estate planning and probate, kind of the tax that comes along with those. I see the same problem. I'd rather solve the same set of problems many times and get, a mile deep on that than be jumping from practice to practice to practice and not getting any deeper expertise in it.
Where can our listeners find your podcast?
Oh, well, thank you. 5 Star Counsels is the name of the podcast. So 5 Star Counsel, all spelled out. It's spelled counsel like the legal counsel, but if you put in counsel like the local group of people, it will redirect you to the right place.
Oh, great.
You could start with episode 1 as a great place of me really getting into my theory of client service. And, like some of the episodes are interviews. Some of them are just me kind of explaining what I think about this and as I said, that's been a great way to figure out what do I actually think about it when I've got to fill some time.
Oh, and I'm going to put in the show notes for our listeners today a copy of episode number 1. I'll send a direct link there. So for those of you that are listening on the computer, you're in the show notes, go ahead and download that. John, thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing all of your wisdom and what you've experienced in your career and how you've implemented it and transferred it over to your law practice.
Oh, Molly, it's been such a great time. I'm looking up and it's like, oh my gosh, how did we blow through this much time? We just started.
I know. Oh, okay. Well, we are going to have you back on after you have your Disney guru there and share some of your insight from that. I'd love to have you.
Oh, love to be back.
All right. Until next time, this has been another episode of Hiring and Empowering Solutions.
If you like what you hear on our podcast, please feel free to visit our website at hiringandempoweringsolutions.com. So we love that you are listening to this podcast. Please drop us a line with any feedback, suggested topics you'd like to hear. And absolutely, we'd love to hear about your victories and your win in regards to creating entrepreneurs in an entrepreneur's world.